Welcome into Holler and Pigskin Podcast. I'm Dylan Hildreth, and this is the Hildreth Media YouTube channel. Make sure to subscribe, download the podcast if you're listening that way. Unfortunately, I'm not joined by Ashton this week. He is sick. Hope you feel better, buddy. Seat's still warm over here. Mainly because I whizzed in it, but that's beside the point. Anyway, back to business here. So, the Big Ten and the SEC released the 2024 football schedule featuring their new additions, Texas and Oklahoma to the SEC, and USC, UCLA to the Big Ten. Now, there is there's a few schedules out there that are quite interesting. But I want to highlight Michigan's real. Michigan being the fourth one from the right. Michigan is going on the road to USC, and they are in Columbus. And on top of that, at home, they're playing Wisconsin, and what could be a very game UCLA. Now, on the non-conference schedule, they get newly acquired SEC team of Texas. They get them at home, though, in Ann Arbor. So it's a little bit of a reprieve, but this schedule, very daunting, very dynamic. Going from the up-tempo, high-paced of USC to the ground and pound in your face will break your nose, Wisconsin. And then you got Ohio State, which hasn't seemed to be a problem for them over the last couple of years, but again, it's the biggest rivalry in college football. Who knows what's going to happen in there? But more on them later on. Now, back over to the schedule. Ohio State, they also go out west to UCLA. And they also get Penn State, in-state college. And then they got a sneaky Iowa. Granted, they got them at home. But with the way that Ohio State has been trending over the last number of years, Iowa will be game. Illinois, a very well be game with Brett Bielema. Bielema knows how to beat Ohio State. He's done it multiple times. And then Lord knows what Minnesota and Michigan State's going to be. This is not going to be a walk in the park for Ohio State either. Now, USC, they're getting the new kid treatment as well, with UCLA, with obviously the forever rivalry, UCLA. They also have to go to State College, and then they get Michigan and Wisconsin at home. Again, very dynamic offense of Michigan. Granted, 2024, whether that has J.J. McCarthy or not, still up for debate. But they will have the tight end. Both teams will be smashing, Michigan and Wisconsin will be smashing USC directly in the mouth. And Utah has shown USC not very fond of that. So, a team in 2024 that will be lurking and could very well play spoiler here is Illinois. They do have Ohio State on the road and USC on the road. But, again, Brett Bielema in the Big Ten, awfully magical in the Big Ten. And he showed it last year. Took Michigan absolutely to the limit in the Big House. You can do that with Ohio State. Done it before with Wisconsin. By this time next year, It'll be a bunch of Bielema guys in there. And again, Bielema in the Big Ten, he knows how to win championships in the Big Ten. After he left, Wisconsin hasn't been the same since. Now, Illinois is someone you want to look at. And Nebraska with Matt Rhule. Take a look at that schedule. Year 2, it would be year 2 under Rhule. Their away games, Iowa, which it's going to be a slugfest, but it's winnable. Northwestern, give me a break. Penn State, Purdue, UCLA. A lot of winnable games. Purdue will be in flux. Penn State, God knows what's going to happen with them. But a lot of interesting situations brewing in the Big Ten that could lead to a very unorthodox Big Ten championship. Year 2 under Matt Rhule, who knows? Luke Fickell at Wisconsin, I think that's going to be about a 3-year build, just because of how archaic Wisconsin's offense has been. But Luke Fickell knows the Big Ten. And he knows what it takes to be good in the Big Ten. Under Urban Meyer, running under Jim Tressel, running that Ohio State program for a year, and then doing what he's done in Cincinnati. By year 2, they're gonna beat somebody they shouldn't. That somebody they shouldn't could very well be that Michigan squad in Ann Arbor. Penn State's beatable. Iowa, give or take, definitely beatable. But it's not a tall task to see a Wisconsin and Nebraska up there. And then let's look at Penn State. They got Ohio State, Wisconsin, Rutgers. Again, a very runnable slate. It could very well be a battle between 3 teams for those now extra 6 slots, at-large slots, in the college football playoff. That is very attainable from a Penn State, from a Wisconsin, from a Nebraska, USC. I think UCLA, with Chip Kelly, it's going to be an adjustment period. Chip Kelly hasn't been in a conference like the Big Ten. The Big Ten is a totally different animal than even the SEC. The Big Ten, you will get popped in the mouth. Now, the SEC, take a look here. Alabama. Get Georgia, which me, being a Georgia fan, I'm not too thrilled about going to Tuscaloosa, but given Alabama's quarterback issues that we're seeing, that's going to be a winnable game in Tuscaloosa for Georgia. Granted, every game for Georgia is going to be winnable. But yet, another year under Kirby Smart, potentially back-to-back national champions, going into Tuscaloosa with, at best, a questionable quarterback situation. Granted, we're going to see how that all plays out this year with I believe, Ty Simpson. But when you are coming out of a spring game and Kirby's going to the transfer portal for another quarterback, Kirby's telling you, or Nick Saban is telling you, there's not a lot of confidence in that quarterback room right now. And so you see these 2 massive powers in Ohio State and in Alabama, very, very unsure of their quarterback situations. And I watched the Ohio State spring game, and they say, oh, you can't take anything from that spring game. Well, Kyle McCord didn't look comfortable in that spring game. Just didn't. I mean, that third string quarterback, I don't remember his name, but he's in that head coach, or coach quarterback program that Ryan Day's made, which I think is actually brilliant. But it's not a great, I don't think it's a great situation in that quarterback room in Columbus, as well as Tuscaloosa. Now, again, with the transfer portal, that can change. But anyway, back to the SEC schedule for 2024. You look at Georgia's, which is about 4 from the right. Florida in Jacksonville. Auburn, that situation is combustible. Hugh Freeze is going to mess up personally in his personal life at some point. Reality is, I just don't trust it. And then Tennessee, that's not going to be an easy situation to navigate. But that's at home. Now, Alabama, Ole Miss, Kentucky, Texas on the road. Outside of Alabama, that's a winnable road schedule. I mean, it's a navigationable, not a tall ask for an on-the-road schedule. It'll be either year 2 of Carson Beck or year 1 of Gunnar Stockton. Regardless of who the quarterback is for Georgia, I think it's obviously it's going to be a national championship or bust, but it shouldn't be a tall task for Georgia to run through that road schedule. Now, I don't know off the top of my head what the non-conference schedule looks like. I think it might have been one of the Oklahoma-Texas schedules, so it probably not going to be a tough one. It might be Clemson, maybe, but nonetheless, could be running the table again for the 4th year in a row, because Georgia should be running the schedule this year. There is nobody on that schedule of note outside of Tennessee in Neyland. And then LSU, potentially LSU in the Big Ten Championship. Now, LSU, Alabama, Ole Miss, Vanderbilt, Oklahoma at home. And then A&M, Arkansas, Florida, South Carolina on the road. I mean, A&M's a mess. Ole Miss, God knows what's going to happen with them. I think there'll be a quality opponent by that time. Just depends on who the quarterback is and their musical chairs, a quarterback room that they got. And then Vandy is Vandy. And then they got Oklahoma at home, which, give or take, who knows how that situation is going to turn out, because they weren't that good last year. And that's with a Big 12 schedule. Do I think Will Venables will figure it out? Who knows? But nonetheless. Anyway, I'm excited for what the 2024 schedule gives us throughout the year. I've stated multiple times on my YouTube channel, not a big fan of the conference expansion, not the conference expansion, but the playoff expansion, 12 teams. Not a number. I don't like it. I don't like the automatic qualifiers, but it is the reality of which we live in. So, I think we're going to see pretty much about a 6-team battle, both from the Big Ten and the SEC, for those at-large bids, just because that's the way it's going to get laid out. You're going to have your conference champions from the other 4 at-large bids, and then the rest are just fill-ins for the teams that did not win the conference in the Big Ten and the SEC. The only question is it going to be 4 teams from the SEC or 3 teams from the SEC? That's the only question. Does a third Big Ten team squeeze in over an SEC? Just the reality of the situation. Now we could see one ACC team sneak in there, which there's a big game on the 2023 schedule that I want to highlight, because this is going to be everybody in the college football brain trust. The coaches, everyone is going to be looking at one particular game, and that is Florida State, Clemson. 2 great teams built completely different ways. See how this plays out. Clemson built more traditionally through recruiting. They have pretty much completely shunned the transfer portal. And they have been built the old-fashioned way, through recruiting, development, so on and so forth. Florida State, however, they've been built up through the transfer portal. They have improved through the portal. Mike Norvell has completely embraced it and has built the Seminoles to what many believe is an ACC conference championship favorite. Between them, Clemson, and Miami has a long shot. North Carolina has a long shot. But the 2 powerhouses in the ACC, Clemson, Florida State. These are the 2 favorites. And they do square off in Death Valley, September 23rd. This game is going to be the tell-all. And it will dictate how other teams focus their recruiting efforts, whether it be from high school or from the portal. If it's a close game, they'll probably stay the course. But if it's a blowout one way or the other, everybody is going to... It's a copycat league, just like the NFL. Everyone's going to start mimicking either Clemson or Florida State, should this game end up being a mollywhopping. Now, personally, I want to see Clemson win. This transfer portal has gone completely out of control, and we need guardrails. Just the reality. We need guardrails. We don't need to have coaches constantly trying to recruit players in, but also keep their own players as well. There has to be some sort of short window for the portal to be active, and then once that window is gone, it is done for the rest of the year. That's just my personal take on it. I think the NIL can help with that, with duration contracts. You have to be here so long. But that's just my take. I'm not a big fan of just the wild west of the transfer portal. You have tampering, which nobody gives a crap about, and it's just this needs to get calmed down. I understand you pay these coaches millions and millions of dollars a year, but my God, they are just one man. You can give somebody $5 million. That does not mean that they are the god of gods. But anyway, this game, it's going to be the biggest game that the smart guys are going to be watching. Just because of the foundation of which both teams are built so differently, and they are the 2 favorites of college, of the ACC. How does the portal build, go against the more traditional build in Clemson. So, the next on the agenda, can Ryan Day survive one more loss to Michigan? Now, a lot of people are saying, oh, he's only lost 2 games in conference his entire career at Ohio State. Well, that is true. But in Columbus, in Ann Arbor for that matter, losing to that team in late November for Michigan, Ohio State, Michigan, losing that game in late November is the be-all, end-all. And with college football changing, is that still going to be the case? At least in Maize and Blue faithful and Scarlet and Gray faithful? Yes. Better win that game, and if you don't win that game, better win the national title. But you don't win that game, you don't even get to play for the national title, is what history says. But I think what it's going to morph into is if you don't win that game in late November, then you better come home with that golden hardware. You better be the national champions. And that's what it's going to be at Ohio State. For Michigan, there's a little bit more leeway just because it's harder to build a national championship program at Michigan. Michigan is not as big of a college football, as big as a recruiting hotbed as the state of Ohio is. But at Ohio, you can get a team full of 5 stars without having to get on the plane or get on the helicopter. Now, the pressure that Ryan Day is under to win that game in late November in Ann Arbor, on a scale of 1 to 10, I would say it's about an 8.5. If you don't win, it better be a fight. It better be close. It better be a game like Ohio State had against Georgia. If they have a game like they did against Michigan, Ryan Day is gone. And a big telltale of how this season is going to go for Ohio State is that game in South Bend. Notre Dame has Sam Hartman coming in from Wake Forest, who is a very talented quarterback. Marcus Freeman, I think he's a good coach. And should Ryan Day slip against a second-year head coach, that game in late November is going to be the game that will decide Ryan Day's fate. And it's crazy to think that we're at this stage now with Ohio State and Ryan Day. Because just 2 years ago, in Ann Arbor, going into that game, for Jim Harbaugh, that was a win or you're going to get fired. There was no more, this has to be a close game. We're not quite at that stage yet where it's a win or you're fired for Ryan Day. But just 2 years ago, for Jim Harbaugh, it was a win or pack your bags, you're out. And oh my, does things change in 2 years? Incredible. And now, Ryan Day is in that almost exact same position. Now, I think Ryan Day can survive a close, hard-fought loss against Michigan. But we see what we saw the last 2 years. Ryan Day's done. It's game over. There is no coming back. And given what Tennessee Titans are looking like this year, and the potential rebuild coming, Mike Vrabel's a very good option. And Ohio State is a very good option for Mike Vrabel. So yes, the plan B option is right there, readily and available. So moving on to the potential conference expansion from the Big 12. Now, this is not confirmed, but there are rumors running rampant, and we touched on this last week, but rumors are running rampant about the Big 12 expansion of Arizona and Colorado. Now, Arizona, Colorado, they're good pickups, not great pickups. But this is more of a market pickup, getting that West Coast, getting that Phoenix, Tempe, Arizona market, and then get Colorado with the Denver market. Pretty much what the Big Ten has done with Rutgers and Maryland. This is more of picking up that market. Now, should they add on Arizona State to complete that rivalry and Utah, which I think is the best option for the Big 12, then not only is it game on for the Big 12, but game over for the Pac-12. And with the rumors of Washington and Oregon getting ready to bolt for the Big Ten, which I'm surprised they haven't done that yet, or at least there's no announcement for it. And with the cancellation of Washington and Ohio State doing home and home, that has really set ablaze to those rumors, which, again, I think it's only a matter of time. Oregon, Washington, and either Oregon State, Washington State, or Stanford, along with Notre Dame, to the Big Ten. I think it's going to happen eventually. I feel like the boy who cried wolf on this, but it's only a matter of time before you have some sort of package deal of Oregon, Washington, Notre Dame, and Pac-12 team to be named later joins the Big Ten. And with this move from the Big 12 potentially coming, Arizona, Colorado, and then you'd have to assume Arizona State and Utah, it is only a matter of time before the Pac-12, I think, is going to end up dissolving. Because there's just nothing left. Cal, Stanford, Washington State, and Oregon State, there's just nothing there. There's just nothing there. And it's going to be sad to see him go, because me being a Midwest guy, growing up, having that Rose Bowl rivalry with the Big 12, with the Pac-12 and the Big 10, sad to see him go, but just the reality of college football. Now, and then 2032 or 36, when that ACC media deal expires, I think we're going to see the ACC go as well. Because you're going to have the Big 10 and the Pac-12 cherry picking at the ACC team. Miami to the Big 10, Florida State, Clemson to the SEC, and then Duke, North Carolina, probably to the Big 10 to bolster the basketball side. And who knows with North Carolina football, could help out with the football side. And it's just going to be a weird pick-up free-for-all for the ACC. So, it'll be a fun, interesting decade in college football to see how it all pans out. Now, hopefully by that time, the NIL deals will be more. The NIL will be less of the Wild Wild West and more tamed, as far as also with the transfer portal. That definitely needs to be more tamed. But it'll be a fun experience. Now, lastly, I touched a little bit on this with coaches on the hot seat, but I don't think there is a seat hotter in college football right now than in Gainesville, Florida. And I think it is a very toxic situation in Florida. And I don't see many wins on that schedule to save Florida's coach. I even forgot his name. My lord. I do apologize. It's a very... Utah on the road to Billy Napier is the head football coach of the Florida Gators. I don't know why his name blanked me, but Tennessee, at Kentucky, Vanderbilt's going to be a fight. South Carolina, Georgia, forget about that one. Arkansas, forget about that one. LSU, forget about that one. Missouri's going to be a fight in Florida State. Unless, God knows what, unless Jesus comes back to coach the Florida Gators, this is a 4-win team. Right now, they are struggling at quarterback. They went 6-7 with Anthony Richardson, who I think was a lot to do with their problems, but you got to replace Anthony Richardson with something of note. And it's just not looking like it's a very good situation. You got kids decommitting left and right, but now over the last few hours, you got, at the time of me recording this, they got an edge rusher who is in a D tackle who's supposed to be really good, but it's a very tense situation in Gainesville. And even as much as I love the Dogs, I want the world's largest cocktail party to mean something. I don't want it to be this just another doormat, move on to the next. I want to see that game be something. And with this cycle that Florida's in right now, you need to find that Kyle Trask. A good quarterback is a good cure-all for any situation. You look at Joe Burrow at LSU, Kyle Trask in Florida. You're not going to find many teams that have the quarterback as limited as what Stetson Bennett was and do what Georgia did. It's just not going to happen. You look at Alabama when they missed the playoffs with Jalen Hurts, and then all of a sudden they get Tua Tagovailoa, win a national championship. They go from Tua to Mac Jones, they win a national championship. And you go from Mac Jones to Bryce Young, albeit didn't lead to a national championship, but it still led to an appearance and throttling the eventual national champions. A good quarterback is a good cure-all, regardless of your situation. if you can get that great quarterback. Caleb Williams is a good example at USC. And Lincoln Riley, a big help. But Lincoln Riley doesn't bring in Caleb Williams. USC is not in playoff contention. It's just, they're just not. But, and you're going to see this with Cam Rising at Utah. If he plays consistent and doesn't have those duds that he had last year, and he doesn't get hurt. Now, Florida, it's a bit more complex, but like I said, a good quarterback is a good cure-all for any ails in football. College or pro. Look at Wake Forest with Sam Hartman. That's why I believe Notre Dame, they're going to be making some noise. And the Irish eyes may be smiling when the Scarlet and Gray's in town. But I'll save that prediction for later. Now, hopefully, and I want to see these blue bloods that are currently pretty much floating on the water, face down. I want to see Oklahoma be good. I want to see Florida be good. I want to see USC be good. I want to see them all be national contenders, national championship contenders. But right now, the reality, it's Georgia and everybody else. And as much as I love Georgia, I don't want to see this massive gap that we've seen between Georgia and the next guy. And with a lot of years, Alabama and the next guy. I'm gonna call this right now. This 2023 Georgia football team is going to contend with the 2019 LSU offense. That is how good Carson Beck is. Now, granted, that's a lot to throw on a kid's plate like Carson Beck. But he's got the talent to do it. And yes, spoiler alert, I think Georgia goes three in a row. Now, excuse me. Georgia, as much fun as it is seeing them win national championships, it is so boring to have just these 40 to 20, 60 to 30, these just blowouts. Now, you're going to have blowouts every year. It's just the reality, especially when you play cupcakes. Like, I don't know, Mercer in November. Yeah, Alabama, looking at you, voting on 8 games. Still not over that, but anyway. But you really only have one game that is in doubt all year long last year. That was the Peach Bowl. Oh, but Missouri was a close game. Stop. Georgia was going to win that game. Stop. There was not a doubt in my mind Georgia was going to win that game. Might have been ignorance, but the only time I had doubt that, oh crap, we are going to lose, was against Ohio State. And I know I'm going off on a weird tangent here, but the bottom line is, hopefully have a bit more parity at the top. You're not going to get parity all throughout college football and have this like 3-loss battle and have an App State over Michigan, something like that. Not gonna happen again. At least, well, it's just not gonna happen. Not on that scale with that type of team. And it's not gonna happen regularly enough to bridge that gap. But the gap between from the top 1 to 6, That needs to be brought closer together some way, somehow, to make college football more interesting. Now, the NFL, who knows what's going to happen? Anybody have Philadelphia in the Super Bowl? Hell no. I had them in a dogfight for the number one pick. I was wrong. But college football, much more predictable. As unpredictable as college football is, you knew Georgia was going to be a contender for the national title. Come down to Georgia or Alabama. The only thing people didn't see coming was LSU, ECU. That was it. That was the only. Oh, that was a pleasant surprise. Tennessee ended up being better than average, but the bottom line is we need more. We need the gap between 1 and 10 to get a lot closer than what it is. That is my one wish for college football. I'm Dylan Hildreth. This is Holler and Pigskins. Make sure to subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. Download the podcast. Hopefully, my co-host Ashton is back next week. And see you then. Later, y'all.